So we can all see my screen, yes?
No.
No.
Yes.
Sublime Text website.
Recording this. So you guys can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
All right. So this is for those who do have Sublime Text, who downloaded it and installed it. So to open it up, you have to create a folder like Marisi showed you. So you go to your, you can create a folder on your desktop or anywhere on your documents. So I've created a folder for these lessons here. This is the folder I'll be working on. It's already created. Né? So the next thing to do is to open up Sublime Text. So you have to go and find Sublime Text on your machines there. All right, so you want to choose the option open folder. Right. So when you have that folder open up, the first thing you want to do is right click on the folder and click on new file. Right. Oh, okay, let me do this. Let me delete this file. All right, so you're gonna right click on your folder, the folder that you created, and then click on new file, and then you're going to save the file. I'm gonna name mine basics .html. Don't forget the .html at the end of the file there, and then save it, and there it is there. We have basics.html, right? All right, so in order for us to create web pages, right, we need tags. These tags, voila.
Yeah, I'm lost somewhere, man.
Sure.
First, I created a folder on my desktop, man.
Voila.
Called it HTML, and I opened the Sublime Text editor.
Sure.
Then from there, I said what file? I go to file, open folder.
Yeah, open folder.
Should there be something?
Voila.
Inside my folder, should there be something inside my folder?
No, it should be empty. Mine has images. You can create it. You can create the images folder later. It should be empty.
Okay, so I say file, open file, right?
Yeah.
And I navigate to that folder.
Yeah, the folder you created. Yeah.
And I say open.
Sure.
Then the next time I say open, it doesn't allow me.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow me. Like it keeps on saying open. It doesn't open nothing.
Share your screen, Mchana. Let me see.
I'm using two PCs now. It's the other one. Okay, let me just try creating a folder inside. can continue for the moment. No stress.
Yeah, sure. For those of you who do have other text editors, use that one. If you have another text editor, you can use that one. You don't have to use Sublime Text. Like I said, there are many different text editors for web development. If you do know something about web development, then you do have your own favorite text editor, please use that one. The important thing here is to follow along. You don't necessarily have to use Sublime Text. There are other code editors out there. All right, so with HTML, right? HTML stands for hypertext. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, right? It's not really a programming language. It's just a language that defines the structure of your web pages. Like, say, if you wanted to display a form on your web page, you would use these tags that we're going to learn about in a minute. You'd use those tags to define the structure for those elements that we will be learning. So the basic structure for an HTML page is as follows. The first thing you need to do is to create a declaration. So a declaration, okay. Okay, I'll put the text now and then explain everything else later once I'm done with the text. Okay, should have done that. Okay, so let me do that. Okay, this is the basic structure of an HTML file, right? The first line here, this right here, this is a comment, right? When you're rendering your HTML page to your browser simply ignores this. This is for us developers, sort of like notes to say, to give us an idea of what we were doing. You'll see another example of how to use a comment in your code. I'll show you a practical example of how to use a comment in your code. So this line here, let me remove this for now. So this line here, that's the declaration. We're telling our browser what type of HTML we're using. And in this case, we're using HTML5, the doc type HTML tag there. This tells the browser that we'll be using HTML5, right? That's all it does. It's a declaration that tells the browser that this document is an HTML5 document. Now, there are other declarations that were used back in the day for HTML4. You can go on and Google those later if you're interested. But if you're learning HTML now, most likely the declaration you'll be seeing is this one. No longer use HTML4. You're using HTML5 now. So that's the first thing you need to put on your document, the declaration. And then right after that, you need to put the HTML tag. Now, HTML tags have an opening tag and a closing tag, right? Here's the opening tag and here's the closing tag, right? Here's the opening tag here and here's the closing tag. The only difference between the opening and the closing is this / here. Is the / here on the closing tag, right? So inside it, we need to nest other tags that we use to define an HTML page, right? So the other tags include what? The tag that comes after is the head, right? It's the head. Now, since I'm using Sublime tags, it automatically inserts the closing tag for me, right? If you're using Notepad, this will not happen. That's why I chose to use Sublime Text. So we have the head tag here. So usually with the head tag, we include meta tags. So okay, let me make an example. Password. UTF-8. So what's happening here? So the meta tag here that I have here tells again the browser that there are these things that they call Unicodes. This tells the browser that we'll be using the character set UTF-8. Now there are others. There are other character set codes, but for this one, the most common one, mostly used one is UTF-8. That's the earliest one, I think, right? So meta tags are also used by search engines. For those who know, I think it's, what is it called? Digital marketing. When we create web pages, there needs to be someone who does digital marketing to optimize our pages so that Google can find our pages when we search for a particular website. So when you're searching for a page, the information is included in meta tags, right? You can have like name and set it up this way. You can description here. Then content. And then for content, you can write anything that defines the purpose of your web page, right? Of your website, rather. It can be like an online store, right? This is where you'd write what you are selling. Things that say maybe you are selling cakes. You can put here cakes or baked goods, right? You can put it here so that when a user is searching, say on Google, they are searching for say maybe an online store that sells cakes. It makes it easy for that user, or rather, it makes it easy for Google to find your page if you have meta tags that describe the contents of your page. I hope that makes sense, guys. We will. I'll show you more advanced meta tags later on, but for now, these are the meta tags that you need to know about. So the other thing that goes in your head is your title, the title of the document, right? So there we go. So here, right, maybe like first website. You can write website. You can write whatever you want here. It's the title of the document, right? So for now, these are all the tags that we have inside the head tag. If you can check here, we have the HTML. Inside the HTML, you see between the opening and the closing tag for HTML, we have the head, right? It also has a closing tag, and inside those, we include our meta tags, the title. Now, there are other things that go inside the meta tag, but I'm not going to go through those now because they are a bit advanced, right? So we go outside the head, right, to put now our body. Body goes here. Right, so open it up. Now on the body, this is where now we display we create our website. This is where now we will include things like images, forms. If you want to create something like YouTube, this is where we include our video tags and so on. So as an example, I'm just going to put text here to show you what goes in the body. I'm just going to write hello world, right? And then I'm going to save. The document is saved. Now I'm going to right click. For those of us who are using Sublime Text, right? I'm just going to right click the file here and then open containing folder. And there it is, right? Now, if you did everything like Melusi told you, if you are using Notepad, if you're using Sublime or a text editor, your file should appear like this. There should be like a Chrome logo if you're using Chrome as your default browser. If you're using Firefox or something else, you should see the logo there. If you don't and you're not sure, just right click it and choose open with, and then choose your browser. But for this to happen, the file has to have an extension HTML.html. So I'm going to choose Chrome here. Okay, there it is, right? So whatever that you see here goes in the body. There's the hello world text that we wrote inside the body text, right? And then the title in the head, there's your title there, first website. It goes here on the tab thingy here, right? Okay, cool. Are we good? Are we all clear with the text that I have so far on the page?
Yes, we are following.
All right. Now let's get to the tags that we actually use to display things. We don't just write text in here. So the first one I want to show you is the the heading tag. So we have the H1, right? Okay. H1, right? Okay, what's happening now? So the H1 is used for a heading. The H here stands for heading. So the heading most likely will be like, you know, at the top of the page if you want a bigger text and so on. So the biggest one in size is the H1 here. And the size decreases as you go down, right? So let me save and show you. So if I refresh my page, you can see this is the H1, 2, 3, and so on, right? These are all. This is the difference between the H tags, right? The H1 is the biggest. H6 is the smallest in size, right? Most likely you'll use between H1 all the way to H3. I've never used H4, right? So now, because I'm going to share these files with you guys, I'll just comment this out. Now, here's another example of where you might use a comment. Let's say you have code but you don't want to render it on your browser, right? And you don't want to delete it, right? So you just simply comment it out. And then if I save this, the only, I should only see the first heading here, H1 only. So that's where you use your comments also, right? So let's go on to paragraphs now. For a paragraph, we use the p tag, right? We use the p tag for a paragraph. This defines a paragraph for us. So okay, let me just write. This is a paragraph. Right. That. And there it is, right? A paragraph. So there's really not much to explain with that. It's a paragraph tag. It's hard to forget, right? Okay. Let's talk about links and attributes, right? So we have another tag, right, which is an anchor link, right? An anchor tag, right? And it has an attribute. So I'll talk about what that is in a sec. Okay. So this is also called a hyperlink. So you know with web pages, usually when you're searching for a website, right, online, there are tabs there on top that link you to different pages, right? Say on my site, I wanted a link that would take me to, say, google.com, right? What I would do, I would use a hyperlink, right? The A here stands for anchor. Don't ask me why. I really don't know why it's called an anchor. But this is a hyperlink. This is how we link to different pages on our websites, right? So if I wanted this link to go to, say, maybe google.com, all I'll have to do is provide the link to google.com, right? Google.com, right? That's the link. And then between the opening tag, this is the opening tag, this entire thing here, that's the opening tag. And then this part here, the href, we call this an attribute. It goes between, or rather it goes inside the opening tag. As you can see here, this is all inside the opening tag, right? Now, right after your opening tag, between your opening and closing tag, you need to put some kind of text to tell the user where this links to. So in this case, we're going to Google, right? So that's what I'll put here. This links to a Google page, right? So if I save that and check it out, if I refresh, and there it is. If I click it, it should take me to Google, and there it is. I'm on Google, the homepage for, google.com. But as you can see, we have a bit of a problem here. This thing opens up on the same tab. Say maybe you didn't want this to open. Maybe you wanted this to open up in a new tab, leaving your old tab as it was, right? So in order for you to do that, you need to put another attribute on your opening tag. All attributes, all tags that have attributes, you put your attributes on your opening tag, not your closing tag, right? So the attribute that I'm looking for is target, and then all I have to do here is put an underscore and then write blank, right? Save that. Right, let me open it up. So if I hit back here and refresh, now if I click on the link, it opens it up on the new tag. That's because of that. This is because of this target attribute, right? Now in HTML, so far I've showed you an example, or rather examples of tags that have both the opening tag and the closing tag. We also have tags that don't have a closing tag. We call them self-closing tags. An example of that would be the BR tag, right? Now, with HTML4 and earlier, for you to use a self-closing tag, you had to include a slash like this, right? With HTML5, you don't have to. It works either way. If I leave it like this, this will work. If I remove the slash here, it would still work, right, with HTML5. But if you are using HTML4 and earlier, you have to include the slash here. So with HTML5, it works either way. But because you guys are new to HTML, some of you guys are new to HTML, I'll leave it as this. This should tell you that this is a closing tag. Now, this is for a break line, right? I want to create space here. Now, if I save and show you, there won't be any difference at the minute, right? Okay, let me just remove it and put maybe another anchor tag here so that you can see the difference. href. Okay, this one doesn't go anywhere. Right, does the closing tag on a new line? Okay, let's take this to a new line once. Right. Okay, good. Let's say this one goes to, I'll just, this one goes to, let me copy this. One of those. One there. It has to be like this. Okay, let's change Google to maybe Twitter. Write Twitter. Yeah, let's say you wanted your other link to a. You wanted it to go to Twitter, so this Twitter. So, right now, if I save this and open it up, see how it renders. Just close that. If I refresh the page, you see now there's a link. There's a link here to twitter.com, right? So let me show you what a break line does. So if I were to come back here on this line and add a BR tag, right, like so, and save, cancel, and save that, and then open it up in Chrome. You see now the anchor tag goes to a new line, right? This is because of that BR tag. That's what it does. If you want to break a line, you use the BR tag. Now we're going to talk about inline and block level elements in a minute, where I'll explain more about the elements that take up the entire. Because if you see here, the H1 takes up the entire line. Yeah, the entire view port, the entire width of the viewport. I didn't have to put a BR here. So including the paragraph here, I didn't have to put a BR with the paragraph here. It just went on a new line automatically. Now I'll explain why that happens later on in the lesson. So say now you have some images that you want to display in your page, right? So So let's say you have some images that you want to display. Let's copy that and bring it up here. Right, how would you go about doing that? So we have an image tag. Let me. Okay. So for that we have an image tag, right? And the tag is not image but img, right? And it has a source attribute. Now the source attribute tells the browser or your web document where to find the image that you want to display. Now, if you look here in my directory, the folder that we created, right? The folder that we created, this is the folder. You have the folder that you created, right? Inside the folder, for those of you who are using Notepad or other text editors, what you need to do is go to this folder, right? Let me find mine. There it is, right? Go to this folder. Let me move this so that this makes sense. Let me just move it out. Yeah. Just move it here. Yeah, you need to find that folder, right? And then you need to create a new folder here called images, right? You can call it images or pictures. It just has to make sense, right? That you are storing, you know, images in this folder. You can call it imgs, pictures. I'm calling mine images, right? Enter, and as you can see here, the folder appears, right? This is where we'll store our images, the images that we need for our website. So if I go back out inside this folder, I'll just copy this picture, right? And I'll paste it here, right? Now I have an image inside this directory. I will show you now how to render this image in your browser, right? So the source, Melusi talked a bit about paths. We need to put down the path here. We need to write the path where the image is, right? Now I'm going to use a relative path here. You can use an absolute path, but that's a bit confusing. So I'm going to stick with the relative path. So now for a relative path, I'm going to say, what you see where this HTML document is, that's where we are now. So to put a path that represents that, you need to put a / here. This says in the same folder, meaning class 2 basics. The browser will be looking inside this folder when you put it this way. So inside this folder, we have another folder called images, right? Inside that folder, we have a picture there called GTI. I think it's JPEG. So GTI, you have to include the extension if you want this to render, right? So this thing here, it's a path, right? This is a path of where the image is, right? The / here at the beginning tells the browser that to look inside the parent directory, the folder that where this file is found, where this HTML document is found. This is what this part here means, the / here. Inside this folder, which is this one, right? Class 2 basics, where this file is located. There's another folder, which is this, images, right? Inside images, we have a picture there, gti.jpg, right? You have to include the extension as it is here. So if I save this now, and there's the image there. We have an image rendered in our page there. So let's go back to the code. So obviously, with images, we have other attributes that we can include here. For instance, we can include the width attribute, right? For the width attribute, you can have your width, say maybe you wanted your image a little bigger, you can say 400 pixels. It has to be in pixels. There are other units of measurements which we will discuss when we're talking about CSS. I'll go through those when we're talking about CSS. But for now, we'll stick to pixels. Let's say you wanted your image to be 400 pixels by, say, maybe the height. You wanted your height to be, again, I don't know, 400 into 400 again, pixels. Save that, see what it looks like. If I refresh, you see my image is a little bigger now, right? It's because of those two attributes we added, the width and the height, right? So back here. So that's the job for attributes. They simply just add extra information or characteristics for your tags, right? If you wanted to add a little extra things for your tags, you normally use attributes, right? Okay, the other thing I want to show you that we normally see with web pages are lists, right? We have two types of lists. We have an ordered list and an unordered list, right? So for an unordered list, you have the UL tag, right? Let's see, UL, right? And then you go in between the tags, you open it up. Inside this, we have list items, right? List items, a closing tag for that too. So I'll just copy and paste that 2 more times, and then okay, let me do this. Let me with our tags now, we are able to nest tags within other tags. I'm sure you've seen that. You see the body tag, we have all these tags inside there. We can also do that inside here. I can include an anchor link here, like so. Can include a link here, say href, and then I'm going to show you. For now, I'll just put a pound there, and then I'll copy the link. See, bring it down here, in here. So let's say home here. Let's say about. Let's say contact. So let me save this. Oh, oops, made a mistake. This should be here. X that. It should be between the anchor tags. Be that. It should be between the anchor tags. I hope you guys are following along, not confusing you. Save that and see what happens. Just hit refresh, and there's a list on here. Home, about, and contact. This is how you render a list. Now, the reason why I chose home, about, and the reason why I chose home, about, and contact is because this is exactly how we create a. I'll show you an example of a navigation. It's usually on top here, horizontally, right? I'll show you an example of how we take a list like this and turn it into a navigation here on top, right? Let me do this real quick. Okay. Here's an example of a navigation. It usually looks something like this. To create this, we usually use a link. You see home, about, portfolio, news, whatever. To create this, we usually use a link. Now later on, I think maybe next week, we'll be starting with CSS basics. That's where you learn how to do this. To turn this link here, this unordered list here, into something that looks like this. This is what you'll be doing. So that's a link there. If you click this, they won't go anywhere. If you wanted to create a link that doesn't go anywhere, you just put the hashtag symbol there, right? If you don't want it to go anywhere. Now, these links, you can easily include an image here. You can nest an image inside these links. If I copy this, let's see, and bring it over here. You can nest a link within your hyperlinks. You can nest an image rather within your hyperlinks. And if I save this and see how it renders, so we have an image down here somewhere. There it is, right? If I click it, it won't go anywhere because I didn't provide a link for where it's supposed to go, but you can do that if you wanted to. If, for instance, you had a logo for your website, usually when you're clicking a logo in a website, it takes you to the home page. This is exactly how they do it. They nest an image inside a hyperlink. Right. So, like I said, we also let me okay. All right, let me remove this. We don't need this. Like I said, we also have another type of list called an ordered list. Now, the only difference between the two is what you write in here. For an ordered list, you use OL. That's the only difference between the two lists, right? So let me change the items here. Actually, let me remove the entire link thing here. Maybe say item 1. So again here. Save that. And I refresh, and you see the ordered list has numbers in front of it. Instead of these bullets here, you have numbers for an ordered list. That's the difference between the two, between an ordered and an unordered list. First, you have the UL, right, for an unordered list, and then the closing tag. Between those two tags, you include your list items. The LI here stands for list item, right? And then you can put the information that you need there, right? And then same thing with your ordered list. You just need your OL, again the closing tag, and then the list items between those tags now. So are we still all together, guys? Do we understand so far? Is there anything confusing you? I'll pause here for questions. Yes, Litabo.
Yes, Solomzi. On
Sure.
line 11, that exclamation with 2 dashes, what did you say it's for again?
There.
Exclamation and 2 hyphens.
Oh, this here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a comment. Okay, let me show you an example of a single line comment. This here, it's the same thing as this. It's a comment. So say maybe in my code here, yeah, let me use it here. Let's say this part here, this UL part here, is going to be my navigation, and I wanted the next developer to know that I'm working on a navigation, right? What I would do is come here and put a comment. Oh, oops. Comment like that says navigation menu, right? This tells the other developer that this part here is a navigation developer. Now, this has nothing to do with the tags that we are working on. It's for us developers to know that this portion here is a navigation menu. I hope that makes sense. And then the difference between this is a single line comment, and the other one here, this is a multi-line comment. You just have to write the opening. You can think of this as the opening tag for it, and this is as the closing tag, right? This is a multi-line comment, and this is a single line comment. Yeah, Sandile.
So I wanted to ask, what is the difference between the single line text and the multi?
The single line comment and the multi-line.
What's the difference between them?
Well, the difference is, well, this one, it covers just a single line, as you can see here. This is a single line. This one covers multiple lines. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines. That's a multi-line comment. If you wanted to you cover multiple lines, you would use a multi-line comment. But this one, you see, it's on a single line. That's why, hence the name single line. Is that clear?
My question,
sure.
My question here is, if we use the what is the purpose of the multi-lines and the single line?
The purpose of a multi-line comment.
Of the multi-line, what is the purpose of it? And then the purpose of the single line.
Okay, look, what Solomon is saying, right? Like you see the multi-line, right? You find that maybe sometimes it's a code. Necessarily, he doesn't want to delete that, let's say H3, H4, H5, H6 code, right? He just want to leave it there, right? So the reason when you comment on that part on its own is not going to be displayed on the browser. It's not going to be rendered by the browser, right? So it also helps you like to kind of like organize or just like keep your code there. You don't delete it. You just like deactivate it so that the browser won't render that, right? So the other reason for the comments is that, like, remember our code, whatever we're working on, most of the organization, you're not going to be the only developer working on this piece, right? So it's for collaboration. So the single line comment, like, it's just maybe he's explaining it's just that code, that line, the navigation line, to say, okay, this is what this piece of code is doing. But on the other part, you can use a multi-line code, for an example, to kind of like deactivate something that you don't want, a code, lines of code, maybe how many are they? H3, 4, 5, 6. So you don't want that to appear on the browser to render that, but you just want to keep it there. You don't want to delete it. You want to keep it there, right? So you can even use the multi comment line, right, for situations like that. You want to keep your code in there. You don't want to delete it, right? So you can use that. And then the single line there is, it says, okay, it's just like for me to explain what is happening below. You see what I have, like, for example, the navigation menu there, you use the single line, of which this is just like for the comment of the code that he's written below there. So for me, on my side, okay, developers use the comments and these things like for different uses. For me, the multi-comments would be like for me to say, okay, let me just keep this piece of code that I wrote here. I don't want it to be displayed on the screen, right? So I'll comment it out. And then also, I don't want to delete it. I just want to keep it here. So for on my side, that's the reason why I use the multi-comment, right? Like to say, okay, let me just keep this code there. It's deactivated. The browser is not going to render that, or it's not going to display it on the screen. That's my side of things. I don't know of other developers, but that's how I use it.
Okay, now I understand.
All right, good. Is everyone clear on the comments? Litabo, sure.
Yes, I just want to ask one more question. In terms of headings, is it possible to use H1 twice in case maybe it's like chapter 1 and chapter 2 and you want to keep the size of the font?
Oh, yeah, it is possible. It depends on the site. It is possible to use an H1 twice or as many times as you need, right? So I can have another one that's here is heading, right? You can have multiple headings here on the same page, but now it will render, right? You'll be able to see it on the browser here. If I refresh this second heading, where's my first heading? Oh, there it is. This is both of these are H1, right? These are the H1 headings here, both of these two. But once you start creating websites, like serious websites, once you get to the advanced parts of HTML and CSS and a back-end language, this here is not recommended. Having the same H1 twice or more than once in a single page, this thing is not recommended. Why? Because this confuses the search engines when they're searching for your page. So what we do is you have to try by all means, like, okay, you said like chapter 1 and 2. If you are creating some kind of online book, then yeah, that makes sense for you to use multiple H1s in a single page. But if you are creating a website, then you have to try and use a single H1 for each page that you create. You must try to avoid using multiple H1, and same goes for the other tags. If you're using an H2, try to use, okay, for H2s and the other tags, well, you can get away with it, but for the H1, the search engines view the H1 as an important tag that defines the what you call the purpose of your website, So they use the tags found in between these tags for say maybe when a user is searching for your website, right? They sometimes go inside your web page and use the text found inside your H1 text. But now if you have multiple H1 tags in your page, on your home page, right? It'll be hard for a search engine to find which tag is the search engine going to use for the user to find your site. I really hope that makes sense, Mchana.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. All right, are we clear so far with all that we have here? Tisetsu, sure.
Can you display HTML in a table? And if you can, which HTML tags will you use?
For a table?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
If
sure,
you can display the HTML.
Yeah, there is a tag for tables, right? Okay. So for a table, all you'd have to do is have the table tag here and the closing tag here. Oops. It's been a while since I created a table. Okay, you have the T head, I think. T head here. T-head. Inside your T head, you want to have a row. Right, I'll just paste that 3 times there. Let's say maybe name. Let's say maybe surname. Like so. And then maybe email. That. And then, okay. TD. TD, I need another TR here. This one is name. Let's put John here. Okay, just hang on a second. I just need to test it out because it's been a while since I created a.
So
let me.
so
Yeah, sure.
I think you have you see where there's TD, it needs to be TR and then the TD must be inside. So the table row.
Oh yeah, ish.
You just shift the TD there to be TR. Yeah, that one there. Yeah.
Yeah. This needs to be
the TR. Yeah.
So that means this one is wrong also.
Must be TH there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me change this first. And this entire thing.
Yeah, like that.
Has to be inside a row.
Yeah.
Yes. Inside we have that. So just push this over. And then this. TD. Okay. Let me see if it renders real quick.
Then one more thing. I think the T8. I'm not sure if the T8 will work. Okay, it worked. It's fine. Okay.
Sure, you can see the table. Okay, let me go through the tags real quick here. Okay, so what's happening here? For a table, if you wanted to render a table, you need the table tag along with the closing table tag, right? The opening and the closing. So the T head, that's where you put your headings for your table, and so inside the T head you put a row, right? The row along with its closing tag there, and then the TH that will be the table heading, the actual heading that you put here. On the first column is name, the second surname and email there. So this here will create a row for us, right? And this, you can think of this as like, I think in Excel they call it what, a cell. This is a cell here, right? The entire thing here becomes a row. So you close your T head, you are done with your headings, right? Outside, you create another row now for your table data. So the TR stands for table row, the T head, heading. And then for your TD stands for your table data there. So as you can see, the first one is John. It corresponds with name. The second one is Doe, goes with surname there. And the last one is your email. And it has to match, right? And then you close your row, you close your table. And then you have your table. Now by default, as you can see here, by default, HTML is very ugly, guys. I'm sure you've never seen a website like this. This is because we haven't added any styling to it. Next week, we're gonna start adding styles to it for us to be able to create that navigation menu that we saw there. Center everything, change maybe the font type and the font size, add maybe a nice background to this. This is because we haven't added any CSS to this, but you will learn how to do that probably next week. That's why this thing looks this ugly here. So so now we've learned what the lists, paragraphs, and headings. And
Solomzi,
sure.
can you add one more data there on the, so they will see clearly a table, and then Sandile, I think he has a question there.
Oh, I didn't see. Yeah, sure, Sandy.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, so let's say you want to add a location. You have you saw that many websites have location. Maybe let's say I make an example. Maybe let's say I live in Soweto. The business is in Soweto, so I wanted to add my location to the website. So how do I do that?
Yeah, adding a location. You mean like Google Maps on your site, ne?
Yeah.
Yeah. To add that, you're gonna need JavaScript, right? Which is not covered in this lesson here. We're still dealing with HTML. Web development has 3 things that you need to learn. The first one being HTML. The second one is your CSS. Once you are done with your HTML and CSS, then you'll be able to use JavaScript to include things like your Google Maps on your website. But for now, including a map on this site, that's way too advanced for this lesson. It will confuse a lot of you guys. For now, that's for a later lesson. We use JavaScript to include Google Maps, and I'll show you exactly how to do that later, though, just not now. Is that clear, John?
The other thing, guys, right? Like the way we are approaching this, the web development, right? We just wanna approach it with like going piece by piece, right? We don't wanna overload. I know like some of you already you've been learning HTML, CSS, and then there are certain few things that you just need to learn, of which if you have like advanced things that you need to know, you can drop Solomzi a message, and then you can also send me a message, and then we'll be able to help you with that. But when it comes to HTML, right, HTML is just there for the layout of the page, right? It doesn't have much on it. You can't style, you can't add logic, you can't like, so that's when Solomzi is going to come in with CSS for styling, and then also for JavaScript, maybe for adding logic, or maybe adding certain things that will maybe be useful on the website. But for now, we just want to go through piece by piece, right? So that for someone who's really new to this, they will start with us from the beginning until they become, maybe they understand, or they can create a reasonable or an appealing website, right? So we're doing these piece by piece. Right, I know most of you now, you want to do things that have to do with JavaScript or CSS. Some of you thought, okay, maybe the table is not aligned properly, maybe it's on the left, you want to put it in the center. Okay, with HTML, we can't do certain things, right? We just like putting it there, we're laying out or creating a structure, and then after that, we can use different languages to style and to add logic or to add certain things. So for now, we're going through the basics, right? But if you're looking for advanced, then you can drop in a message if you have a question and say, okay, how do I do this? If we know how to do it, then we can be able to help with that. But just allow Solomzi to give it piece by piece, but ask him all the questions. And then if he can't answer you now, he will tell you, okay, when are we going to be doing that particular topic? Right.
All right, sure. So if we all clear with these tags that we've been doing so far, we'll go through and do another common thing that you see with websites. Okay, this one is getting a bit long now. So what I'll do is I'll create another file here. Right. Just new file. Save it as, let's call it register.html, right? Let's call it register.html. Save that. Now with HTML, we have forms, right? We have forms that we use to collect information from users on the web, right? Usually when we want to create some type of social media account, okay, what's this? So we have forms that we use to collect user information, like your name, your email address, your last name, your phone number. We use forms to collect that information, right? So while we're here, I might as well just create another file here. Let's say a new file. And I'll save this one as login.html, right? Save that. And then again, I'll go and put the boilerplate here. Login. Okay, back to register, right? So with form, the first thing you need to do is put the form tag, right? You need the form. Now inside those tags there is where you put now the input fields that the users need to fill out. For instance, if we wanted to, usually on register form, they collect your first name, right? So for that, you use an input, right, of type text, right? Of type text, and then, okay, let me put a label here. So let me go and put a label. Inside here, let's say first name. So I'm going to include another one. Let's go placeholder. Say first. In there. And what I'll do is I'll just copy this. Paste it for your first name, maybe paste it for your email, for your password, and maybe confirm password now. Okay, so the second one is still text, but instead of first name, we want your last name there, right? Okay, I changed it. I'm supposed to change this. Let's go on and say last name there, right? And then this one, we're going to change the whole thing here. email, and the type changes to email. Change that to email, and then this one we want to make it maybe password, and the type changes to password again. And the last one we want it to be, let's say we want confirm password and password. Let's do the same here. Type, change it to password. Let's add a radio. So input type, it's a radio. Let's give this a name. Gender. Let's also give it an ID. Let's call it gender. I'm going to say maybe male. Change this to okay. Okay, I'm going to have to include next to my inputs. Let's include a BR tag here. This. Okay, now let's see how it renders, and then we'll talk about the tags. Oh, I need to open it up. Same folder, I think I call it. HTML. All right, so we have a form here, right, with all these tags in there. So the first name, this part here, that's the label, right? This is the label, and this is the input. The text you see in there, that's the placeholder. When you write something, it goes away there. The text inside the input here, that's your placeholder. But this here is your label, right? You have one for your first name, last name, email, and for your password, when you put text here, it puts those dots there instead of the actual text that you put in there. And then we have a radio for your gender there, right? So let's go back to the code. So like I said, this is usually how we collect your information, right? This is how we usually collect your information on these websites. Now, another thing that you might see is the website has something like this, a paragraph. Okay, I'm going to put here, right? And then here or here, I'm gonna ask the user already account. So, and then we put the closing tag for our anchor there. Then put the text. right? Okay, let me quickly create the I'm going to need, let me quickly create the login page, right? So for that, just, oops, let me form. Inside here, let's say to log in, we need your email. Let's use email, and then your password there, right? And then the other thing that I need from this, I'm just going to copy this. Copy this line here. Bring that in here. V. And we're going to change this to don't have an account. It needs to go to the register.html and right, let me save this. Let's come back here. I need to save this. Okay, so if I go back to my browser and hit refresh, now usually with these sites, this is what you usually see, right? When you're trying to register and you already have an account, you usually see something like this. And if you click it, it takes you to the login page, right? This is the same page that I just created here, the login page. This one here, login.html. This is it here. And to see it here, this is another example of how we use the hyperlink, right? We use it to connect different pages of our website, because usually websites have multiple pages. Like this one here, we have the login and the register page, and we need to link those so that it makes it easier for our users to know when they need the register page, they just click the link. When they need the login page, they just click the link that says login, and it takes them to the login page, instead of them coming up here and typing in the URL for the login page and again doing the same when they want to register. We use hyperlinks to connect those two pages together. It's not just for links that go outside of our domain. Like for instance, the earlier example that went to google.com and Twitter. We don't always have to go to outside our own domain. We can just link to pages in our own domain here, like in this example here. So with these, now the last thing I want to talk about is something we call a div, right? Now if you look here, guys, if you look here, if you look in the browser, right, the label and the input, they're all on the same line. Same thing for password. The label and the input, they're all on the same line. Now earlier when we started this session, I said there's something that we need to talk about, and that's the inline and block level elements. What you are seeing here is an example of an inline element, meaning the difference between this inline element and a block level element is that an inline element doesn't create that break line thingy here. It doesn't create that for us. Meaning when you're placing an inline element, when you're placing another element right next to it, like here, we have the label, which is an inline element, and we have another element right next to it, which is an input. Both of these are inline elements. That means they're going to go on the same line. like as you can see here, they go on the same line. There's the label, there's the input. There's the label, there's the input. They go on the same line because they are inline elements. Now, we also have block level elements. An example of this is that H1 tag here. You saw when we rendered this page, right? The H1 tag, all of these H1, these heading tags, they were on their own line. The reason we had to put a break line next to an anchor element is because this, the anchor element is an inline element, meaning when I put another element right next to it, they will both go on the same line, unless the next element was a block level element. Now, examples of block level elements is your H1, your paragraphs, your UL, your unordered list, your list items. These are examples of your block level elements, meaning when you let's open this thing up. Let me open it up. It's basics, right? As you can see here, the H1 is on its own line, and I didn't put the BR next to it. If you look at the code, I didn't put the BR next to this. Litabo, sure.
Solomzi, I can't see your screen.
You can't? Okay, who else can see my screen? Let me see.
I can see your screen.
Okay, let me leave and come back. I'll see.
I think it must be on Litabo side because I can see your screen. Unless if there's other people that can't see your screen.
Yeah, it's sharing on my side. Yeah. Okay, here's Litabo again.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, good. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, the examples that we have here. The H1 is a block level element, meaning it takes the entire width here. So if let me show you like this, let me inspect this. So another thing that we use as developers is the inspect tool. So to access this, just right click and click on inspect on your browser. It doesn't matter what browser you're using, right? And then when you click on inspect, as you can see here, we have the tags that we have in our text editor there. To see if an element is a block level element, right? Just use this selector tool. And as you can see, the H1 here takes the entire width of the browser. You see the blue strip here, that's all H1. Now when we're doing CSS, we're going to talk about what this orange light, this orange background is there, but the blue one here, this entire thing represents the element itself, in this case the H1. So you see an H1 is a block level element. Now if I do the same for the paragraph, you see the same thing. The text only ends here, but because this is a paragraph, it spans the entire width, such that the other elements like the link cannot go on the same line as a paragraph, because a paragraph is a block level element and a link is a inline element. If I go back to my code here, if I go back to my code and remove this BR tag next to the link, let me save and go back. Oops. If I hit refresh here, you see this Twitter goes right next to it. This is because these two are inline elements, right? Now the image is another example of an inline element. If I remove the break line tag next to this link here now, if I remove this, if I remove that and save, we'll go back to the browser. If I hit refresh there, you see now the image is right next to the Twitter one. Why? Because all three, the anchor tag is an inline element, and the image is another example of an inline element, right? So I hope you guys understand the difference between a block level element and an inline level element. A block takes the entire width, right? Such that the elements that come after that block level elements will go on a new line. Here's a perfect example of that. The H1 and the paragraph. They take the entire width, whereas the inline elements, they only occupy the space that the text, in this case, the Google text here, takes up. They only occupy this space here, and the next element goes right next to it, unless you put that break line tag that I showed you. Same thing with the image. An image is an example of an inline element. As you can see, it goes right next to the Twitter text here, because it's an example of an inline element. Now with CSS, we can change this. We can change how these render, but we will talk about that on our next lesson. For now, I wanted to show you the div tag, which is a block level element, which is what I'll be using here to make sure that these input fields go on their own line. So for that, let's go back and open up the register and the login pages, right? So let's do register. Right. So as you can see, if I close my dev tools here, this thing here is called dev tools. Every browser has this. Again, to open it up, you just click on the inspect, or you can click the shortcuts here and it'll do the same. So if I go back here, so I want each input field to be on its own line without using the BR tag, without copying and pasting the BR tag after every input there. So to do that, I'm going to use a tag called a div. So to do that, I will, okay, maybe let me put this here. I'm going to say div, like so. Put the closing tag and open it up. And then I'm going to take this right here. Can I move this thing? What happened there? Let's paste it in here. Yeah. Again, this one. This over. Okay, for these I'll just use a break line. Line. Let's use 2. Create save that. Okay. Oh, okay. Here the last 2 input fields, they are of type radio, right? I didn't talk about these attributes. Okay, the name and the ID attributes. These are usually used. We use the name and the ID attributes for a server-side language, right? Or JavaScript to add behavior here. But let's say, for instance, this information, we were storing it in a database. We would use the name here attribute to grab whatever value that's associated with this input field. In this case, it will be the male or the female. But don't worry too much about what the name and the ID do for now. When it comes to the ID one, we will be talking about it when we're doing CSS. This has to do with how we select elements on our page for styling and such. But for now, don't worry too much about what the name and the ID do. So if I save this, and let's see how it renders on the browser. If I refresh this, as you can see now, each input field is on its own line. This is because of that div element that I added here. So what's the purpose of a div? A div, we use a div to sort of like divide our web pages. Let me show you an example of a website. Let me try and find a website that I have here. Okay, where is it? Projects. Okay, let me just put this here. Let me show you an example of a website real quick. Projects, transport, loading, validation. Okay, here's an example of a project that I made a few, I don't remember when. Okay, so with websites, what we usually have is something like this, right? You want to have your navigation menu on top there, and then you're going to have this showcase thingy here. And you want to have, again, another section here, right? Another one. And then your footer here. Now, before HTML5, we were using a div to sort of like divide our website into something that looks like this, right? You use a div for this portion here, this navigation menu here. You use a div to create this. And then again, you use another div to create something like this here, right? And don't worry, guys, if this looks too advanced, we will be showing you how to build something that looks exactly like this one here. It's really not that hard. Once you understand your basic HTML tags, putting something like this together is very easy. So again, to divide up your website, right, into these sort of like sections here, we used the div tag. Right? We still use the div tag. I still use the div tag. Most developers still use the div tag. But HTML5 came with these semantic tags, these new tags that now have names. Instead of saying div, say maybe this here. Instead of using a div here, we use the nav tag, because it makes sense. You know that inside the nav tag, you want to find your navigation, right? And then here you use another tag called a section. Let me pull up a picture here. So HTML5 semantic tags. Let's see a picture, an example of this. Let's go to images here. Yeah, I think this will do. Yeah, I hope you can all see this picture here. So these are the tags I was talking about. We have the header, you have the nav, you have the section, aside, article, and your footer. So I don't have to explain what the header and the footer does, and the nav. Those are obvious, right? Anything you want to go here. Actually, this here, this whole portion here, including this showcase area here, that's your header. I use the header for this. The navigation, along with this portion here, I used a header for that. So you use a header for that. But for now, we'll stick to a div, right? And then once we get to the advanced part, once we get to the CSS part, I will not confirm. Once we get to the CSS part, I'll show you how we use the other semantic tags. For now, the tag that you need to know is the, what is this? Password and email. Yeah, is the div. That's how we divide up our websites to create, to make our website, have to look nice and, so if I save this, you'll see that, what's this? If I click on login here, you'll see that each one goes on its own line. So again, the important thing to understand here is those block level elements and the difference between your block level element and your inline elements. If you understand those, then CSS will be much easier for you. If you understand how to use your divs on your website, understanding the semantic tags again will be much easier. If you know how to use your divs, then the semantic tags that I just showed you will be much easier to understand. They are really just like divs, but with names for search engine optimization. We will talk about all that in our next lesson. But for now, once you do your CSS, I'll show you how to take a form like this one here and turn it into something like, let me pull up an example here. Where is this?
Solomzi, I know you have so much to say, but I think we have gone past the usual knocking off time.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to continue from where you left off now. I don't know when. Okay, we're going to decide when we're going to continue from where you left off. I'm not sure if it's Friday or next week. Tomorrow we have Obakeng teaching components of a computer, the hardware components and the software part of a computer. So I don't want to take much of their time because I know some of them, they have been online since 10, now it's 2.
Sure.
We can call it a day and then they will connect. We're going to organize and then send them a link just when we're going to continue from where we left off.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, before we close, maybe the people got questions. So anyone with questions, guys, before we close this? Okay, no questions. So that means tomorrow, guys, same time, same link. Use the same link. Obakeng will be the one facilitating. So just make sure that you use the same link. Right. Thank you, guys.
All right, sure.
Okay, sharp.
Guys, don't forget our tradition. Drop in your name and surname and your group there on the group chat, and then leave the chat.
Hello. I'm unable to write my name.
Mr. Moyo. Yeah, same here. Eh?
Mr. Melus.
If you can't write your name, it's fine. I will populate the register by myself this side. It's fine. I'll pick up your name this side.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.